So if we can get enough of a break in the rain today, and it's clouding up again already, so I'm not sure what our chances are going to be, but we're going to give it a try. We're going to try to get a start on the landscaping project, beginning with the front yard. This weather is so cool and wet. It should be ideal weather to install some new plants for spring. As part of the plan for the front, I transplanted the columbine that have been growing in the urns by the front steps for years. It's been amazing how they've survived so many years of freezing in the pots and hot summer sun. They're so resilient. They're so beautiful. And I transplanted them here. I dug up some daylilies that were taking over the garden by the driveway. Transplanted the columbine there, and it looks like they're thriving. It looks like they're liking this spot. Trimmed the climbing rose bush back, way back. It had grown halfway out into the driveway here, but it was so loaded with beautifully fragrant blooms, I hated to cut it back. But I got a new trellis for it, trimmed it way back, and looks like it's thriving too. It's getting all kinds of new buds on it, so I'm excited to see what it's going to look like this year. Soon those buds will be blooms. We're going to head over to Oakland Nursery now to buy a few things for the landscaping project and my mini retro urban Italian sports car, a little Fiat 500 that I've named Gucci. When I first got it, I wanted to get vanity plates that just said Gooch, after Agnes Gooch from the film Auntie Mame. She's the character who is Auntie Mame's sponge, her secretary. And when Auntie Mame told her to live, because most poor secretaries are starving to death, Agnes Gooch goes out and lives and comes back and said, I lived, I've got to figure out what to do next. So I figured I've had a pretty good life and just trying to figure out what to do next. So I thought that was appropriate. And it's a great little car just for driving around town, running errands, and even some longer trips. Gets great gas mileage. So Oakland Nursery has always had the best quality plants that I've been able to find in the area. I've never had any bad luck with them at all. So today we'll be looking for a couple more boxwoods, maybe some more hostas, different variety, and see if they have any geraniums out now too for the urns out front by the front steps. So let's go see what they've got. So I'm looking for some white geraniums for the urns out by the front steps. Have a lot of color. Here's some white ones, gallon size.
These get much taller.
And I see some on the other side of it too. Let's go check to see those are like. So these are a little cheaper, but I'm thinking I would probably put 3 in each of the urns. There's plenty of room for them, I think. Make a nice full showing. So I think these are what I'm going to get. So we're headed back to the boxwood section now. This place always has such great choices. It's always hard to leave with just what you had in mind to pick up when you came. Some nice rhododendrons there. I could spend so much money here, as if I don't already. What did I say? I tried to save the canna bulbs before winter last year, just storing them in the basement. But I'm not sure they made it. I haven't seen any signs of early growth down there. So it looks like We'll be getting some cannas for the raised bed below the kitchen window in the back too. I like to get a mix of orange and red and yellow, and they grow tall enough to reach above the kitchen windows so you can see them when you're standing in the kitchen. So if I don't stop to buy something else before we get there, we're getting close to the boxwood section now. And here we are. Here we are in the hosta section. Again, so many to choose from. I'm looking for hosta pentensionea variety to give a little variety to the hostas in the back with a broader leaf, taller variety. So we'll have to look around, see if we can find it. So I'm not finding the variety that I came to get, but this looks like it might be a good alternate. Big Daddy Hosta. Has the large blue cup shaped leaves. They get to be heavily corrugated. Nearly white flowers in June. It should provide some nice variety to the beds, and the white flowers will blend in with the other colors in the garden. Okay, I think we'll take 2 of these, please. I'm looking for a couple of small finial type lawn ornaments to mark the edges, the ends of the beds, where I planted the liriope and daffodils last fall, along the patio in the back sidewalk. I'm not seeing quite what I'm looking for. So I did find some online, but I prefer to buy them in person so I can make sure the color is what I'm looking for. Looks like I might have to take my chances and buy them online. Hopefully not have to return them. And I'm going to be looking to replace one of the urns that I've kept in the dining room over winter. It's the second winter I've done it, and one of them did really well last winter. But one of them looks like it isn't going to quite make it. As much as I hate to say it. So I'm looking for a particular kind of fern. Not a Boston fern. All of these appear to be. The Kimberly fern is what I'm looking for. Just to make sure that it matches the other one. So I may have to look a little further for that one too. Not a bad haul for the first day of garden shopping this spring. We've got a couple of Big Daddy hostas for the back, a couple of green gem boxwoods to match the others that I planted last fall. We have 6 white geraniums for the urns up front. And we have a mix of 5 planets for the raised bed. We have the kitchen windows, mixture of oranges and yellows.
Yeah, I call him, let him know that we'll have a lineup here for you. You know what a picky guy is?
Looking forward to doing some digging now. I may have to stop at Lowe's to check for the Kimberly ferns and to get some new soil and mulch. I'd wanted to try to refinish the cast iron urns by the front steps before I planted new flowers for the spring, but rain and a busy travel schedule beat me to it. So the weather is ideal for planting. So I should be able to refinish the pots even after the flowers are planted. I'll start by cleaning out the old soil, all the old maple seeds that have fallen in there before they turn into trees, and refilling the pots, the urns, with some good quality potting mix mixed with a little sphagnum peat moss. This is where the 6 white geraniums will go, 3 in each urn, and they'll tie in with the vining white geraniums that'll be in the window boxes upstairs. And then once they're planted, on a nice day this week, I'll come back out and refinish and repaint the urns. You can see how pot-bound these geraniums have gotten, with the roots growing out of the bottom of the pots. So like I say, you want to make sure you break up the soil that they've been growing in the pot pretty roughly. Give those pot-bound roots some room to grow, loose them up. So I started with the first pot. Good mixture of potting mix and sphagnum peat moss. Replace the old soil. You kind of break that up a little bit so that the roots will be free to grow in the new soil. So do that with each plant and dig a nice hole to set them in. And before I cover them back up again with the soil, I'll add the fertilizer and water to them too, to give them a fresh, good start. Now that I have the plants set but not quite firmly planted, I'll go ahead and water them good and feed them with some Miracle-Gro plant food. This is really a miracle. It does amazing work in helping to stimulate the roots and new growth and improve the flowering. The plant food comes with a handy measuring spoon. The large end says for outdoor plants and the small end says for indoor. So I'll start by giving it a good shot of fertilizer with the large end to give it a good start here. And then probably use the smaller end just to supplement it once a month to make sure that it's getting plenty of nutrients in the pot here. So again, before you firmly set the plants, make sure you water the roots well, and then cover it up, and then water it again to give it the best start. Now that you have the plants set, you've watered and fertilized the hole that they're in to stimulate new root growth, you can go around and firmly press in the plants in the soil to make sure they're well set. And once that's done, I'll come back and give them a good just watering, no fertilizer, and they'll be ready to grow. And there we are. Lovely. One thing, when I gave the geraniums just a general watering after I had fertilized the holes that they were sitting in to stimulate the root growth. When I watered it, I made sure to water out around the perimeter of the urn, just to give the roots something to grow towards. So again, before you firmly set the geraniums in the soil, make sure to water it deeply and fertilize them, and then you can firmly press them in, add more soil around it if you need to, fill up the urn, and then just a general watering out around the perimeter of the urn, around the sides of the plants. Now the best part is to sit back and watch them grow. Fertilize them a little bit monthly, just to help keep them healthy, especially in the urns during the hot summer months. Water them regularly, and just watch them grow and bloom. Next steps will be to refinish the cast iron urns and to replace the hostas going down the front sidewalk here with clumps of lavender. The hostas were planted probably about 30 years ago when the front yard was much better shaded. There were two large Bradford pear trees out by the front of the street, where the one maple tree is now. Hostas are typically shade-loving plants, so when those trees were taken out, it dramatically changed the climate of the front yard. And last summer especially, during the extreme heat and dry we had, the hostas really suffered, but I was afraid they may not come back at all this year. They're looking much better than I thought, but they are still looking pretty thin. But you can tell that they still need to be divided anyway. So I'll divide those up, share them among friends, use them to fill in for the other hostas in the front bed by the porch here, and plant lovely clumps of lavender to add some fragrance and a touch of French along the front walk as people enter. Et voila! Besides some regular weeding, it's almost constant, should make for a much nicer entrance to the front. And the geraniums, like I said, will complement the white vining geraniums that will be in the window boxes on the second floor. The lavender will add a touch of color. Yeah, I'm excited, looking forward to it. Well, as luck would have it, the rain drove us back inside the house, but at least we got a start on the front yard project. We've got the geraniums planted, and we'll save the boxwoods and the hostas for the backyard. Much bigger project anyway, so that'll be its own episode. This spring has been so crazy. It'll rain for what seems like the entire day. The sun will come out for maybe half an hour or so, so you don't know whether to stay inside and keep warm or go outside and try to get something done and just brave the elements. Anyway, we're back in the house. We're going to be making some appetizers. We're making ham and cheese wafers today, or sablé au jambon au comté. Comté is the cheese, and if you've never had comté cheese, it's C-O-M-T-E. It's a hard, pretty sharp cheese, similar to maybe cheddar or smoked Gouda, and it really goes wonderfully with ham. The wafers are savory, obviously, and pretty salty. So I'd suggest having plenty of drink to go with it. So today we're having a tangerine spritzer, topped off with some Prosecco. We'll start making the wafers with a mix of flour and cornmeal, some diced ham, What would French cooking be without cheese and butter? Some salt and pepper, some fresh chives, and that's all it takes. Let's get started. So we start by blending together a stick of unsalted butter at room temperature, the salt, pepper, and chopped fresh chives, and blend those together until it's smooth. And then we add the Comté cheese to the butter mixture. It's hard not to take a spoon and just eat this straight from the bowl. Requires 2.5 cups of the Comté cheese. And like I say, you can substitute the Comté cheese for maybe a smoked Gouda or cheddar. Hard, sharp cheese that'll mix well with ham. Mix those together. Once we've got the grated cheese and the butter and the salt and pepper and chives mixed together well, like I said, it takes 2.5 cups of the grated cheese, so a lot of cheese. But that's what makes it so good. After those mixed well together, we stir in the flour and cornmeal mixture. Maybe half of the flour and cornmeal at a time. So you can blend it in well with the cheese and the butter. A little more. And finally we add the ham. Just a half cup of diced ham. Once we have all the ingredients mixed together well, we divide the dough in half and roll them out into about 7-inch logs on a lightly floured surface. And then wrap that in plastic wrap and chill it for about an hour. And like Julia Childs said, don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's like live theater. You can't always control what's going to happen in the kitchen. Never apologize. Okay, so we'll wrap that in plastic wrap and chill it for about an hour. And do the same with the other half of the batter. So after you've let the ham and cheese loaves chill in the refrigerator for at least an hour, in fact that's one of the good things about these. You can prepare them in advance in case you're having friends over for a happy hour or a dinner party. You can make these, keep them chilled in the refrigerator for up to a couple of weeks. In the freezer for a couple of months or more, really. So you really can save yourself some last-minute prep time if you'd like to do these in advance. So anyway, you take them out of the refrigerator, cut each of the loaves into about 1/4-inch slices. Put the slices on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, and make sure you give enough room for each of the slices, since it is basically melting cheese. Allow enough room to spread out a little bit as it melts. Put it in the oven for about 12 minutes at 350 degrees, which I've already done with the first loaf. And this is how it comes out. And again, since it is basically melting cheese and grated cheese at that, they have kind of a lacy edge to them, very thin, wafer-like. What could be bad about ham and cheese, really? And of course you can leave the ham out if you prefer to do a vegetarian version too. Nice. Semblait un bon écompté. Let's go ahead and save ourselves a drink. The tangerine spritz is really easy to make. You take the freshly squeezed juice of a couple of tangerines, roughly 2 ounces, add about 3/4 of an ounce of Campari bitter, top it off with some Prosecco for the spritz, add a half wheel round of the tangerine for the garnish, et voila! Santé! That's nice. And the bitters kind of cut through the sweetness of the tangerine. It's really nice. Thank you again for joining us today on the Urban Chateau. Hope to see you again in future episodes, and please be sure to subscribe. Au revoir from the Urban Chateau today.